May I invite Dr. Chinwe Peace Igiri to join me here. Thank you. Dr. Chinwe Peace Igiri, if you want to clap, clap well now. Right. Dr. Chinwe Peace Igiri is a senior lecturer in the Department of Computer Science and Mathematics at Mountaintop University, where she also serves as acting director of Open, Distant, and E-Learning. She holds a concurrent senior lecturership at Cavendish University, Uganda, an appointment that grew out of her service from 2022 to 2024 as a volunteer with the Nigerian Technical Aid Corps under the Federal Ministry of Foreign Affairs, during which she was deployed to Cavendish for institutional capacity building. She has over 18 years of experience in teaching, research, academic leadership, and digital education, spanning appointments in Nigeria, Uganda, and India. Dr. Igiri holds a PhD in software engineering from Amity University, Rajasthan, an MSc in computer science from the Unique Uniport, and a B and a B in computer science and engineering from Enugu State University of Science and Technology. Her academic path has taken her from a decade of teaching at Captain Elechi Amadi Polytechnic through a visiting scholarship at Amity University, Rajasthan, to her current senior academic leadership roles in Nigeria and Uganda. Beyond her own research, Dr. Igiri has supervised several undergraduate and postgraduate research projects. She facilitates research, writing, and methodology workshops for early career scholars across African universities through the POCUS Institute's Development Research Center, mentors researchers through the African Scholars Mentorship Network, and co-developed the Applied Data Science Program, an intensive applied machine learning curriculum whose participants have produced work prepared for international journal submission. As a lead paper presenter at the 22nd Annual Conference of the Association of Nigerian Musicologists, Dr. Igiri brings a systems and technological perspective to the conversation on music and Nigeria's economy, examining how artificial intelligence, data, digital platforms, cybersecurity, and emerging technologies are reshaping music creation, distribution, ownership, education, and economic value in the 21st century. Ladies and gentlemen, our third lead paper presenter, Dr. Igiri. Welcome.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, everyone on the team. Without wasting so much of our time, I want to go into the discussion for the day. Okay, I'm here to present a paper titled, I know that protocols have been established. There's no need going back on and on. So let me continue from the existing protocol. I'm here to present a paper titled, The Song Machine Cannot Sing. Human Presence, Data Ownership, and Future of Nigeria Music Economy. There's an important question we always ask, and that is, can machine actually produce sounds? That was before the era of AI. And today, everyone knows that machine can produce sound. But there's something more important and harder question to answer. And that is this. What happens to human meaning, human ownership, and human economy agency when machines can participate in music making? I come again. What happens to human meaning, human ownership, and human agency when machine can participate in music making? And that's the ultimate question for today's discussion. And we're going to examine it together. Allow me to start with an experience I had some weeks ago, precisely on the 2nd of August 2026. I was in a church service, and there was a song ministered by the choir. It's titled, "I Was the One." When the words from this song came to me, it came like a force. I was the one who threw the nails and through his hands and feet. It came directly to me. I don't think that was mere performance. And I'm not so sure that those ladies standing there or the choristers singing just came up to perform. I believe that song must have come from the place of prayer, place of meditation, and every other thing that ensures that music is connected to the soul. I was not the only one in the church that broke into tears. Because at that point, every other person in the church were crying. And on my way home, I started asking myself, can a machine produce a song that actually make a human cry? That was the question and the concern that gave rise to the topic of today's conversation. You know, in this advent of AI, there is this fear. Will AI replace us? True or false? Well, will AI replace us? But the fear is there. There's no fear. It's a threat. There's a threat. It's a threat. So it's a very narrow question to say, can AI replace us? But there's a better way to answer that. We Nigerian musicians continue to control the value generated by their own creativity. That is what is most important. How do we have control over our own creativity as Nigerian musicians? So the real danger is not about replacement, because AI has come to stay. But how do we do what AI gives us? What is most important is the separation from the value of one's creativity. So the arc of this discussion moves from the opening question, which I have already presented in my story about my experience in the church. Then I'm going to move on to 3 stories. Story about Fela, Badwin, and Haddon. Then we'll move on to the economy framework, which is the nexus of this conversation. And then what AI can do and what it cannot do. Then we'll round it off with stewardship agenda. So the 3 stories I've just mentioned them now, so let me not go round and round again. But let's quickly move to the stories. I'm going to invite my co-pilots to join me in presenting this story.
1969, Fela Anikulapo Kuti traveled to the United States with his band, Hula Lobitos. The tour was difficult. By the time the musicians reached Los Angeles, they were struggling financially and performing wherever they could find an opportunity. But something happened in Los Angeles that would transform Fela far beyond that tour. He met Sandra Isadori, a black rights activist who introduced him to the writings and ideas of Malcolm X, Frantz Fanon, Angela Davis, Stokely Carmichael, and other black political thinkers. Fela returned to Nigeria with a different consciousness. And gradually, that new consciousness changed not only what he sang, but the structures through which he chose to express himself. His band evolved into Africa 70. He established the Africa Shrine, creating his own performance and cultural space. His home and creative community became known as the Kalakuta Republic. And when institutional interests conflicted with the political message of his music, Fela increasingly sought greater control over the structures through which his work reached the public, including through Kalakuta Records. That is what makes Fela important to this conversation. His story is not simply about becoming famous. It is about the relationship between creative voice and control. Because cultural visibility does not automatically produce economic sovereignty. An artist may influence millions of people and still have limited control over the systems through which that influence becomes economic value. Today, artificial intelligence adds a new layer to Fela's old question. It is no longer only who controls the stage, the recording, or the distribution. We must now also ask, who controls the data? Who controls the model? And ultimately, who controls the value created from the artist's creativity?
So that was from my co-pilot telling us the story of Fela Kuti. So moving on.
1969. Fela.
So let's go to the second story, the story of Baldwin and the question of meaning. Specifically in his Sonny Blues music. But also permit me to invite my second co-pilot to tell us a little bit about the story.
In James Baldwin's story, Sonny's Blues, two brothers struggle to understand one another. Sonny is a jazz pianist. His older brother knows that Sonny has experienced addiction, suffering, disappointment, and instability. But knowing the facts of Sonny's life is not the same as understanding him. For much of the story, words are not enough. Then one evening, Sonny's brother goes to hear him play. He watches Sonny sit at the piano with other musicians. And gradually, something changes. Through the music, the brother begins to understand what ordinary conversation had failed to communicate. Sonny is not simply playing notes. His suffering is there. His struggle is there. His history is there. The music becomes a form of testimony. And this is why Baldwin matters in an age of artificial intelligence. A machine can learn the patterns of jazz. It can can generate harmony. It can reproduce rhythm, melodic structure, timbre, and style. And an AI-generated composition may genuinely move a human listener. But Baldwin leads us to a deeper question. When Sonny plays, we are not hearing only a musical pattern. We are also hearing a life interpreted through music. Someone stands behind the sound. There is biography. There is memory. There is responsibility. There is witness. So the question is not simply whether artificial intelligence can produce emotionally convincing music. The deeper question is, what gives musical expression its meaning? Is meaning located only in the sound? Is it created by the listener? Or does part of its power come from knowing that a human life stands behind what is being expressed? In the age of generative AI, that question becomes increasingly important. A machine may reproduce the form of testimony, but who stands behind the testimony?
Who stands behind the testimony produced by machine? And that has to be you and I. The human has to be there to control what happens, to even inspire the machine to sing.
In James Baldwin's story, Sonny's Blues.
So this takes us to the last story, the story of Haddon and the question of governance. That was in 2019 when she generated music alongside with AI. And probably let's just listen to my third co-pilot. Are you bored with her?
In 2019, experimental musician Holly Herndon released an album called Proto. But this was not a conventional collaboration. Her creative ensemble included human vocalists, musicians, developers, and an artificial intelligence system known as Spawn. Herndon was not asking simply whether artificial intelligence could replace a singer. She was exploring another possibility. What if humans and machines could participate in the same creative process? But her later project, Holly Plus, raised an even more important question. Her own voice became the basis of an artificial intelligence instrument. A user could provide musical input, and the system could transform that material into a synthetic representation of Holly Herndon's voice. At this point, the issue was no longer simply technological capability. It became a question of governance. If a person's voice can become a reusable digital instrument, who decides how that voice may be used? Who gives consent? Who authorizes a new work? Who benefits economically when the synthetic voice creates value? And who has the authority to say no? Herndon's response was significant because she did not treat governance as something to be considered after the technology had already been built. She made governance part of the creative experiment itself. That lesson is particularly important for Nigeria. As Nigerian voices, musical styles, languages, rhythms, and repertoires become increasingly valuable to artificial intelligence systems, we should not ask only whether our music will be represented. We must ask whether Nigerian creators will participate in determining the terms of that representation. Because once the voice becomes data, creativity becomes inseparable from consent, provenance, ownership, and compensation. Holly Hendon therefore gives us the third question in this presentation. Who governs the machine? And perhaps more importantly, who gets to decide what the machine may sing?
So that is about the experiment by Haddon. It's about governance. And one most important thing she did during her experimentation, she ensured that governance was part of the creativity. And that is what we should start thinking about. At the moment of your production, even when you get the inspiration of the song, what we should be thinking about is how do we control our creativity? How do we get back our value to us in the age of AI? So let's put figures to the stories. I want us to look at it in two complementary lenses. The lens of industry economy and that of platform economy. In 2024, according to Regalstone, music was estimated to have given us the value of 600.7 million US dollars, which is approximately 901 billion naira. That was in 2027. Sorry, 2024. Thank you for that correction. And it was projected to give us the value of 1.03 billion USD by 2033. If you look at this value, according to statistics, 65.74% of this value comes from performance, while 30.13% of this value comes from streaming, digital, and platform industry. So looking at the value from the platform industry, according to Spotify in 2026, Spotify generated royalty about 60 billion plus naira. And the streaming is about 30.3 billion streaming. Listening in the Spotify in 2025 is about 1.6 billion. The growth rate in 2 years is about 140%. That is huge for music industry and the economy of Nigeria. So, the nexus of this conversation is about presence economy, platform economy, and model economy. And these three are connected. The presence economy. What is presence economy? Presence economy has to do with the embodied performance, the live performance, the ceremonies, the worship, the teaching, and everything that has to do with presence in the music industry. And then, with the presence economy, it can be powered to the platform economy. The platform economy has to do with the recordings, the metadata, who sang what, by who, the indexing of those metadata, the algorithm, the visibility, the royalty infrastructure. All this has to do with the platform economy. And the platform economy gives us, with the platform economy, we can actually model the economy, model the music in terms of the voices, the repertoires, the training data, and even the generative access. So does ownership, consent, and economic participation travel with music in the present model economy? What is the model? The algorithm that generates these voices. As we are discussing here, someone can just pick up our discussion and convert it to data. In fact, recording is going on there, and that is data. What if we want to reproduce a similar situation, a simulation of what we have done here? All we have discussed in this meeting, from the first day till today, can be replicated. But who takes ownership? So let's looking at the present economy, when the sounds becomes the social value. You see, in the present economy, so many things are not considered. Number one, the talking drummers during ceremony. Who knows how much they make? They are not captured. Even the choir trainers during music preparation. The time spent on those things are money. It's not captured in the economy. What about the live band? They only tell you how much you pay them. But beyond that, it's not captured in the economy of music. The traditional instrument makers, they are there in the villages. They are even there when we have one occasion or the other to present. It's not captured in the present economy. So that's the most dicey part of the music economy that we need to start thinking of. How do we capture all this in the music economy? So the gap now is what platform cannot count can still not be economically realistic. So the absence of the musicians from formal data sets is itself a finding. And that is what needs to be considered in governance. Looking at the platform economy. The platform economy has to do with the recordings, the metadata. What are metadata? Information about a recording. When the music is recorded, who is the author? What's the title of the album? Everything that is indexed on that music is the metadata. It has to be captured. This ID has to be captured. And without capturing the ID very well or comprehensively, you may not be able to train the algorithm that will replicate the same. So this algorithm must be trained so that it can generate money, value, royalty. In all, a song can be owned and still lose its value. Yes, you can sing a song, it was inspired by you, but it can still lose the value. Why? Because the platform that recorded it was not properly captured. And so who will the royalty go to? Who decides who the royalty goes to? Who decides who it will be recommended? Let's assume a song is captured, and for me, I like a particular type of song. And when I go to Spotify to listen to music, I'll search for probably an artist I'm very more comfortable with. But if these metadata are not properly captured, I'll be searching for the artist in vain. For example, the story I just told you about, the experience I had in the church. During the choristers' ministration, the author of this song is R.N. Anon. I don't know if you know about that music. Do you know I've gone around the internet to search this song. And this is a song that ministered to me. If I was able to find this song, perhaps I would have listened to it over and over. Perhaps other members in the church that were there that day might also have listened to it. And you know, as we listen, someone is earning money. The author, the owner, if it is properly accounted for, the royalty goes to the right person. So here, the metadata becomes the infrastructure economy. because it is the metadata that determines the algorithm. It is the algorithm that determines the visibility of whatever you have created in the age of AI. Moving on to the model economy. What is model economy? We are looking at the AI itself, the music recording. From the music recording, it has to be trained. The data has to be trained. What you just listened before now is my AI. I just trained it and told it what to do, and it did that for me. Moving on to, from the training data, you'll be able to generate the AI voice model. And then, what about the synthetic output? Because what you listened before now is a synthetic output. But there must be somebody who originates it. And that person, the royalty that comes from whatever output that comes from it must be accrued to the original owner. But there must be a proper tracking. So in Nigeria, music supplies the training materials, but music ownership and platform governance sits elsewhere. And that is the challenge. We don't have data center in Africa. We don't even have data center. There was a platform I was using, and there was need for data to be reposited. And at the cost of searching for where my data will be reposited, funnily, the only available option was Germany, and the other one was Australia. These are the only available options for free. And that is where my own data will be reposited. Africa, we don't have this platform. This is what we can begin to look at. Professor Odim, let me quote him. He went for a conference in the US, and part of the conversation from that conference is about developing a data center. It's called DataScan in Nigeria or African country. This repository will help us correlate everything that has to do with us. Sometimes when I want to generate images, it gives me the white skin images. I'll tell you, I don't like this. We should be able to brand ourselves. How many of us have tried several times? You want to generate song. It gives you the foreign or the Western voice. Why not we brand ourselves? And we build this data for them because we don't have a platform. We don't have a repository. We don't even have a place where we can train our own data and use what belongs to us. Unfortunately, we pay money to upload the data to them. And for us to get the data back, our own data, we still have to pay money to download it to ourselves. What a misery. We need to begin to think about how do we come out of this? Who did this to us? So I have been told I have only 5 minutes left. So I'm going to be very fast. So let's look at artificial intelligence. What can it introduce? What can it contribute to us? It's easier for us to, these days, if you just have your studio is your laptop. With your AI studio, the one I showed you is the Google Studio. I used to develop it. In a few minutes, it generated it for me. So with your AI studio in your laptop, on your phone, you can build your own music. But that inspiration needs to come from you for it to be able to make impact. And while creating your music, you need to think about governance. How do I protect it? How do I ensure that the creativity from this music comes back to me? And this has to do with, okay, let me stop here. I'm trying to see the fastest way to go. So we have said what AI can do and what AI cannot do. Anything that has to do with repetition, just give it to AI. And focus on anything that has to do with creativity, judgment. Because AI cannot create. Even when you tell it to generate, it is called generative AI. You tell it to generate, it gives you nonsense. Somebody has to be behind the screen to control what it gives you. So everything that has to do with repetition, task that you do over and over, surrender it to AI. And focus your attention on what matters most. And what is it that matters most? Anything that has to do with creativity. Take responsibility over whatever AI gives you. So we have to divide our label. Assign to AI what AI should do. Something like transcription, draft notation, even the demos, reference mixing, cataloging, metadata, all this can be done with AI. While whatever we are giving should carry our name. And because it's carrying our name, we should take responsibility to make sure that AI does what we want it to do. And this has to do with human judgment. What is the real risk? We can't run away from it. The voice risk. Your voice can be cloned. Who takes royalty for what is cloned? The right without records. Informal musicians perform, and when there is no records to track the metadata, who gets the royalty? Someone can be here, record my voice, and use it for something else and gets the royalty for it. What about synthetic volumes? When the generation or the automation cost is very low, it becomes too synthetic, and the meaning is almost watered down. So what do we do? In this age of AI, we say that data is the master tape. So guide your data responsibly. Guide your data carefully. This is cyber security. As I round up, I want to challenge us with this. We can share responsibility as artists, as educators, as universities, even as association, and as music industry and the policymakers. Let's share responsibility, who does what. And the moment we begin to step into the shoes of our various responsibilities, I think we will enjoy the age of AI. So, here are 5 institutional priorities. Map the informal. First is to map the informal music economy. How do we map it? Second is to build ethical archives. Strengthen metadata and the rights systems. Protect the voice, the likes, the synthetic identity. And above all, create provenance and standard for AI-generated music and content. Here is my AI disclosure. I have used generative AI like ChatGPT, Google Studio, I mentioned that, and Canva in preparing this. And these are the various responsibilities for both I and the generative AI. I take responsibility of every information on this data. Here are my references. Thank you, sir.
Well, no, don't go away. Don't run away. Another round of applause, please. You know, sometimes when we are dealing with AI, you just get unnecessarily frightened. But the way you have broken it down here, I'm sure most of us are going to go back and try to put our hands on it. Thank you very, very much. Wonderful presentation. Now it's open to questions. Do we have any questions? We'll take a few questions for her. 1, 2, 3. Okay. We're done with 3. Oh, 1 leg. Okay. You will make it very short. 4. Okay. So let's begin. And you'll try to give us the answers.
I don't have the answer. We have professors in this hall. So
No.
we share together. It's an open discussion and conversation.
You know
Go
what?
ahead.
You know what?
I don't know.
You might have professors here, but you are the expert now in this.
Thank you, ma'am.
Uh-huh. Okay. Professor Nyeji, please.
Thank you. Oh, it's getting me. Am I not there? It's flexible. Thank you for the great presentation. Actually, you somehow read my mind on finding our own platform, because I recently reviewed a paper for an international journal on AI, which was dealing on African music, generating and actually representing African music, which the paper generally agreed or accepted that it's not possible to have a human music in Africa, because music in Africa is human. We go beyond sound to other things. And that paper was from Ghana. And we came to the conclusion, in fact, I recommended that we have to find our own source, because the paper made it clear that AI depends on data that it has. And that is why when it is dealing with Western music, it's almost 94% accurate. But when it comes to African music, it's about 4 or 6% accurate, because it only deals with what is available. And we don't have our own music available on the data. And like I said, you read my mind. We had recommended that we do our own, we produce our own, and find a way to articulate our own AI systems that will deal with our own kind of music. And my question, you've told us the wonderful stories. You are in artificial intelligence, I believe. What are you people doing to develop the kind of AI that will be responsible and responsive to our own kind of stuffs? It's not only music. Various things about our culture, about our lives, about our social system, about our political system, and. You are telling us, Anim, we are musicians. We are not technologists. It is your responsibility. And I'm asking, what are you people doing in this regard? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. What are we doing in this regard? It's all about funding. When we talk about repository, there is need for us to have our own data center. If we have opportunity for a data center, are you even ready to give us your data? Don't you think you will be more comfortable to submit your data over there? There is data stand. Unfortunately, Prof is not here. Maybe through Dr. Adebayo, I can share the link with him. So that on that data stand, that is a local data repository where we are collecting data that has to do with African context. So it's not about music alone, everything that has to do with data. So that most times when my students are building applications, I'll tell them I need a local context. And for them to see data to build this application locally is difficult. And like I said, data scan has come to stay. So when we start contributing to it, we might be able to have a repository where we can train our own data. Thank you. At least let's start from what we have. Those people we are measuring with, they started from somewhere.
Thank you. Question number 2. Okay.
All right, thank you so much, Doctor, for this presentation. Just 2 thoughts. I will want to veer off a little bit from what Prof said, in the sense that I am thinking that it shouldn't just be outsourced to people that are in AI and in technology. I was rather looking at a synergy where we can have this come into music itself so that we feel a bit safe, we feel protected, we feel that the data isn't just going to aliens who we don't know. And if it comes into us and we have people right within the system, the music that are, training this AI, supplying data, I am thinking that question of will we be able to trust to supply the data will be a little bit minimized because we feel it is still in-house. We feel we are part of it. We feel we can take ownership of it. It may be a new area like Professor Titus was talking about ecomusicology yesterday. It may be a new area, but I'm thinking we could probably see how to bring it home into the music itself, and we can collaborate. However, my question is, how do we protect the voice? You said something like that about protecting voice. How do we do that, please?
That's a very critical question. How do we protect the voice? It's like water. As much as you can, at the point of creation, at the point of inspiration, at the point of recording, that metadata is important. And when we have governance that is able to track who owns this voice, and therefore, if we're able to track who owns the voice, we should also be able to track how will the revenue or the royalty that comes from that voice be accrued to the original owner. So it has to do with governance, policy making, and that is what we can come together. By the time we keep pushing and pushing and pushing, maybe one day we can get someone that will hear us out and say, no, it's not enough. It's time for us to stand up and see how we can place policies or how we can put policies in place in order to protect our people. Thank you.
Sorry, there is something about
voice cloning. There's something we can't do without that. But also, remember, in voice cloning, there's synthetic voice. So, when a voice is cloned, you definitely have to know that this is synthetic, like the one you listen to. It's voice cloning. It doesn't sound original as it should be. So, if you want to listen to the real thing, you want to go for the real voice. But when you clone your own voice, like I clone my own voice sometimes, when you clone your own voice, you can use it for something more productive for yourself and for your community. Yes, sir. There's a hand up there.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to help out. Okay, go ahead.
There was a third question. Okay, yeah.
Thank you, Prof. Well, I think it's still it's a privilege to be in ANIM this time around because I'm learning new things and I'm happy with that. Well, you said something like feasibility becomes infrastructure. Feasibility becomes infrastructure. And then I wanted to talk more about, that's what you've been saying anyway, but I need more explanation on it. Okay, you see, we are arts musicians, almost all of us, although we are trying to meander. How do we become visible? That is critical. Let me talk about data repository. I said, data repository, how do we go about this as art musicians? All right, how do we go about it? Because Professor Oyeji was mentioning during yesterday's presentation that maybe sample of popular music. Now we are talking about art musicians. How do we go about it? Then, data center. Please, ma. Yeah, the second person that asked questions talked about collaborative. But I'm also even thinking, I think that should be part of what, yeah, we have to collaborate. But if we can be guided to even have our own. But you mentioned governance and policy. Must we wait for government? I'm just thinking. Must we? governance and policy.
Okay.
So these
sir.
are some of the questions I have. Thank you very much.
Sir, let me start from the last one. What made you think that governance is all about government? Who is the government? We are the one. So we decide what happens. But when we have one voice, we can come together and say, no, this is what. And do you know the most interesting part of it? If there is no culprit, if someone fails the law and there is no punishment, everyone will keep failing it. But when there is a punishment, we have placed policy. If you do this, this is the penalty for it. And someone does it and there's no penalty. So who tells you that Mr. B will not do it and get away with it? Or Mr. A does it and he's caught because he doesn't have somebody on top to speak for him or her. So it is we that will govern it. It's we that will come up with the policies. We write papers, publications, and we recommend policies. We can take it further. I belong to an organization, the Pukus Institution of Research Development. The professor, the co-founder of that organization is a professor in economics. So most times they go for policy dialogue. How do we establish certain policies in various areas in Nigeria and Africa in all? So the second question is about, the first one, if I remember, is about visibility. How do we become visible? I just gave an example like the story I told us about, I Was the One. The author of this song, in fact, when I went online to check for that music, I was told that there is no song accrued to the name that was on the screen during the display. So, practically, the original owner of the song, the artist behind this song, is not there. It's not visible. There is no record. So, you become visible by starting to record what you are doing. There should be a metadata. And with that, you have to come to a platform. Because in your village, in your home, in your laptop, I always tell my students, you build an application, you test it, it's running, and it's serving the purpose, but it's only on your laptop. Who knows what is there? You must publicize what you have done. But why publicize? You have to be cautious to protect it, and that's where the governance come to play. The second one, I can't remember the question. Okay, that has to do with the repository. We have talked about it. I'm going to share with Dr. Bayo the data scan repository. Let's see how we can start from there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think this whole idea or issue about feasibility is very important because beginning from the keynote speaker, the first lead paper, the second lead paper, and now the third lead paper, everybody at one point talked about visibility and us being visible. So thank you very much for addressing that too. Yes, ma'am, please. That will be our last question, so we can continue. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much, ma. I have really gained. I want to ask you, said we can take responsibility as an association. I don't know, maybe what all our guys have been saying is taking over that. How do we think that the association can take responsibility over this matter?
I will throw it back to our guys. Our president is here. How can we take responsibility? If there's a body that has a voice that can speak and people can hear, if you speak today, they don't hear. Speak tomorrow, they don't hear. Keep saying. At some point, when a baby is crying, the same thing. There's another age in my say that say, when a baby is crying, where there is something pinching that baby. And no matter how much you try hard to shut that baby up, as long as what is pinching that baby is still pinching that baby, he will keep crying. So, how do we do this? Let's start by speaking out. Thank you. There's a suggestion here. Thank you for helping me out.
Yeah, I actually wanted to bring this up at our AGM, but because the context is ripe for it, I was going to suggest that we set up a small committee of music and AI and technology, or whatever you could call it. Probably you, being the person we're hearing directly now, could, help us with, well, maybe one or two other persons that are competent enough. So probably this institution, being where we're having this now, could be the anchor, while we find two or three other persons. Let us take one foot forward and know how it goes, because it's quite difficult the way it is going now for us to run away from it. So I think we need something that will actually represent us and in details, fully, so that we can, have it going. Probably. We will still discuss it further at our AGM, probably. So, but that's what I'm thinking.
Thank you so much, Prof, for stepping in. A journey of 1 million miles begins in a day. If we leave this place without action points, without stating what exactly are we taking out from this conference, if we leave this place, we go organize another 23rd annual conference, and we'll still recycle the same thing. And by then, AI would have gone haywire more than it is now. But let's start from now. Can set up a small committee. We have a professor here, a professor in computer science, who is in charge of this data stand I'm talking about. We can take up that and come together and discuss how do we go on from here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Professor Onyeji. And I'm very sure our president is going to take that up. We're going to take one question online. That's something that we have not done up till now. And that is by Samuel.
Hi, good morning. Thank you so much, Prof, for the presentation. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Great, fantastic. Thank you so much for the presentation. That was really, really insightful. And I personally appreciate that, because we don't need to shy away from the reality of our time. And I really want to appreciate your effort in how you're also bringing technology into music. I just want to also point out that we might want to explore some data centers that we have in Nigeria from a couple of engagements and exposure. At least I'm privileged to know that we have a couple of data centers in Nigeria, particularly Lagos. I think Lagos has up to like 26 or thereabout. Even MTN has data centers. I think we might want to explore that. And just like the president mentioned, I think it would be good to have a committee. And since we have a body, we might now meet them on how we want our data infrastructure to look like, how we want to structure our data. I think that is the only thing that might be challenging. But for centers, I think we have them. But we might want to look at how do you want to store our data? And this is how we want our data to be stored, so that when we want to retrieve them or people want to have access, they can have access. And I think it would be good for us to explore that as a body. And we have a team that can reach out to, at least MTN is reachable to a large extent, so we might want to explore that option. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Samuel. So we have data centers. According to Dr. Samuel, about 26 of them scattered in Lagos alone. And you can imagine how many we have at Abuja. It's when you don't ask that you don't receive. So since we have it and he knows where they are, we can co-opt him into the small community, and engage him in discussion. Let's take it from there. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Dr. Chinwe. Very impressive. We are very grateful. Thank you very much. I'll now hand over to our able PRO to continue with the program.